Vineyards and winemaking date back thousands of years, yet the fundamentals of wine and how to best enjoy it remain a bit confusing to many of us. We're here with Susie Barrie, who's a renowned master of wine, and is going to tell us a little bit about the basics of wine, starting from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So we're going to open the bottle first of all.
With a bottle opener that you called?
I call this a waiter's friend, yes. There are so many different corkscrews on the market, but this is probably what a waiter would normally use, largely because they can carry it easily in their apron. So it's a very simple way of opening a bottle.
And it has one of those little levers that gives
It does. So what you do is you twist the cork in, and then there are two little points for the cork as you get it out, and there we are.
Yeah. And that's a real cork?
Yes, there are all sorts of different stoppers on the market, different types of cork, plastic corks, agglomerate corks, screw caps.
So you've opened the bottle. Should we smell the cork?
There's no point in smelling the cork. It looks nice, it's quite fun, but that's not really going to tell you anything at all.
So when they say a wine is corked, what does that actually mean then?
So some people think that if you see bits of cork floating around in a glass of wine that it's corked. That's not a corked wine, that's just been opened badly. When a wine's corked, what's happened is that the wine in the bottle has been tainted, contaminated by a tainted cork, and it's going to smell kind of musty, mouldy, and when you taste it, the fruit in the wine is kind of suppressed, and then the sign of a fine wine is that it has a really long finish and it will be shortened.
And how do you properly pour a glass of wine?
Well, it's really simple. You just get your bottle. It's really good to have one of these drip stops. It's just a disc that you swirl around and pop into the bottle and then just pour. And the main thing is not to pour too much into a glass of wine. You don't want to be pouring it right up to the top. You want to pour it about a third full, and that's perfect for tasting the wine. So then you've got your glass of wine. We want to taste it. Now, wine tasting isn't complicated, it's not difficult. In fact, it should be a lot of fun. And the most important thing is to just keep it simple. We stop, we have a look, we have a sniff, we taste, and hopefully we enjoy it. So the first thing we do is stop. Most people are really busy, rushing around. You grab a glass of wine and you just knock it back, don't think about it. This wine is going to give so much more back to you if you take a breath and give it your full concentration. So we stop and think about the wine that we're going to taste. We then have a look at it, and the main reason that the first reason you're looking at it is to make sure there are no bits floating around in it. You want it to be clear, bright, not hazy or cloudy, and something that really looks appetizing.
And when you're holding your glass, you hold it one way for tasting and one way for drinking?
Normally for drinking, particularly a white wine, we want to hold it by the stem and let it stay as cool as possible. So we've got our wine in the glass, we've had a look at it. The next thing we want to do is to smell it. But in order to smell it, we want as much aroma to come out of the glass, and the way to do that is to swirl it and get the oxygen in and all the aromas out. Now, swirling can be a messy business.
This is a half
if you feel
glass.
if you feel non-confident, pop it on a table and swirl it on the table. So that's much simple. Yeah. That's the simplest way to do it. And then take a really nice sniff of the wine. So what you're doing is you've let all that air in and all the aromas out. But equally, this wine is not bursting out of the glass. A New World wine, so New World countries, those wines tend generally to burst out of the glass. We've given it a swirl, we've had a sniff, we've had a look at it, we're going to taste it. But when you taste it, what I want you to do is you can just try sipping it and swallow it, or spit if you want to. But if you do that, you're not going to get the best out of the wine. The best thing to do is take a really nice big mouthful, or reasonable sized mouthful, swirl it all around your mouth, treat it a bit like a mouthwash. Get it into every little corner of your mouth. And then if you can, try sucking it back through your teeth to let some more air into it. If it's a sweet wine, you'll detect it on the tip of your tongue. That's where you get sweetness. And then at the back, any bitterness you'll detect right at the back of your tongue. But just remember not to just sip and swallow. You know, try and get it into your mouth and around your mouth a little bit.
And how do you decide what wine goes with which food? I mean, traditionally, I guess we've thought that white wines go with fish and red wines go with meat. In Norway, where I'm from, we always we break that rule when it comes to cod. We always have red wine with fish. But is that sort of, are there rules?
I think I would say there are no hard and fast rules. What you need to do is to keep an open mind and to be prepared to experiment. It's so important to try different things with different foods with different wines. But there are a few rules that you could think about, a few tips that you could bear in mind. And the first one is to do, it's food and wine, think flavour and weight. So flavour is very different to weight. Flavour is, you might have something that's very lightweight, something like maybe fresh ginger or green peppers, but they've got masses of flavour. Equally, something with lots of weight, in terms of food that might be boiled rice or potatoes, very heavy, but they're not actually very flavoursome. So what we're looking for in a wine is that it's going to match, in terms of weight and flavour, the food. So for example, you've got a big meaty beef casserole, lots of flavour. You want a good, big, chunky red wine, maybe a Barossa Shiraz or a Chateauneuf du Pape. If you've got fish, so something like your cod, yes, have it with red wine, but you probably don't want to be drinking it with a Barossa Shiraz. You probably want a nice light Gamay or Pinot Noir, something gentle, soft, maybe something that can be served slightly cool as well.
And spicy foods like Indian and Chinese.
Spicy suit a bit of sugar. The great thing about sugar is it will temper the spice. So if you are having not heavily spiced food, that's just difficult generally to match to any wine, but if you've got something with some light spice, say a coconut curry, just gently, like a Thai kind of dish, you want either an off-dry white or even a fruity rosé, a really good fruity rosé, and that sweetness just softens the spice and balances it. The other thing that sweetness does is it balances saltiness, and an absolutely classic food match is Sauterne with blue cheese, because blue cheese is very salty. The other thing to think about with sweetness in wine is you then need good acidity in the wine as well, because otherwise the wine is going to seem cloying. There are certain food and wine matchings that are just classics, you know, Rioja and lamb, Sancerre and goat's cheese, you know, and as we've said, Sauterne and blue cheese.
Yes. And what are the ideal storage conditions for wine?
Well, the ideal storage condition for any bottle of wine really would be somewhere dark, cool, something about sort of 10 to 13 degrees C or 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit is perfect. But anything between about 7 and 18, so 45 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, is absolutely fine as long as it stays constant.
And then there's the art of decanting.
There are different reasons for decanting a wine. One of them is to get rid of sediment. So what you would do if you've had your wine laying down is to stand it up so that the sediment gradually just works its way down to the bottom of the bottle. Then you open your bottle of wine and gently pour it into the decanter. And that's the first reason for decanting, to get rid of the sediment. Another reason is to aerate the wine. So what we're going to do is now pour this into the decanter to aerate this wine. So really something like this, which is a young, relatively tannic Bordeaux wine, really benefits from that kind of aeration.
So it's not just old wines that need to be aerated?
Older wine often don't need aerating. As we've sort of said, in terms of the getting rid of the sediment, you don't really want to aerate an older wine too much, particularly a very old wine. It could well just totally collapse because it already is very developed. It's fragile, developed, and it doesn't need too much air. With this, we want to get the air in. Equally though, you don't want to be leaving it in the decanter for too long. You know, a couple of hours before you serve it is probably fine for most wines. And then we just pour straight from the decanter. And that will have just aerated that wine and allowed it to soften and just be a little bit more approachable, more drinkable at a young age. But you can taste the tannin, can't you?
You really can.
So tannin is that sense of the drying sensation you have in your cheeks.
It's almost like an unripe banana.
Exactly that. That's a brilliant way of describing it. It really is.
How do you choose the right wine?
It's really difficult. I mean, a lot of people do go on the label and, you know, sometimes you have nothing more to go on. I think what you've got to try and do is build up your own bank of knowledge about wines. At the end of the day, it's not about what I like, it's about what you like. So once you know your own personal taste, you can start then experimenting within countries and grape varieties. But I think, you know, so many people, the only thing they have to go on is the label.
Yes.
And that's absolutely fine. You know, why not choose a wine that you think looks nice?
Yes.
It may well taste delicious as well.
Whether you're new to wine or a connoisseur, you'll find the more you know, the more you'll want to learn. We look forward to sharing with you wine's many secrets.